Hello, hello. Sound check real quick. I've got Joey, Library of the Untold, backstage right now. I've been chatting with him. I see he's been in the chat too, talking to you guys. I know it's a little soon after dropping the hammer down yesterday, but you already know all past 2 months we've been on a roll here in Archaix. Got to get it out. I'm probably going to slow down after Monday, because Monday we got Astrologer Joe coming back. Audio's good? Excellent, excellent. All right. I know a lot of people will watch this video before the day is over with. Got to make sure that audio's right. Clay's Pigeon, Jasmine, how you doing? One before I introduce my guest, I didn't do any announcements yesterday. The Cypher group, a lot of you are in Cypher. You just have to be patient. We're probably doing everything tomorrow, but I first have to get with the 2 core guys that are always on screen with me, because it's a lot. When you're back testing 32 teams and you're back testing 20 weeks, there's a lot of things that we need to do in prep before we actually do the sessions on screen with you guys. And we've never had to do this type of preparation before. So the Cypher videos will continue, but we're taking a day or 2 off to get together to do this stuff. Because it's you guys know it's an amazing procedure. But other than that, I'm taking care of a lot of admin stuff. The Houston meetup is on the way, so I'm going to slow down the videos. You'll start seeing some more epic drops videos and some of the videos from 5 years ago that were on point that people forgot about. And of course, we'll continue with live videos every once in a while. But my accelerated pace that you've become accustomed to in the past 40 to 45 days, that's going to slow down a little bit. But without further ado, this is Joey of Library of the Untold, a very peculiar and very intriguing channel. You need to check out these videos this guy's got, because he's covering some really dynamic, amazing topics. Hey, Joey.
Hey, I gotta say, I am very pleased to be the first guest to come on after that live stream that you did last night, because although I don't like hearing you say that you're going to slow down, after a drop like that, I can imagine you're going to have to regroup, because that whole session was just one mind blow after another, and it made sense in a very chronological way. I was very pleased to watch that.
Man, thank you. I appreciate it. It was I've been my community knows this about me. When I come into contact with information, I can't compartmentalize, Joey. My mind will not let me move forward if I am stumped with data that I know has to fit somewhere, because you can't dismiss something if it has some type of credibility. So I get this phantom time hypothesis comes up, and I have to see why he says what he says. And once I understood his arguments, I was like, oh wow, he doesn't defend the chronology at all. He's actually saying they invented events. He's not saying that they added or deleted years. They made up what happened during that time period. So when I go through Fomenko, because Fomenko is another one, when I go through Fomenko's arguments, I see wow, Fomenko, multidisciplinary approach, really told us that in the end, once you're done going through Fomenko's material, in the end, it's an admission that the Dark Ages is dark, and somebody invented all the histories that happened then, and they did it around the 1200s. And in doing that, they had to invent the 800s to the 1200s to get to the point where they started inventing histories. Fomenko now makes sense. It does not offend the chronology. It actually enlightens us. So to paraphrase, because this isn't about me, but to paraphrase, that video was a huge stepping stone for me, because I had to, even the shape changer phenomenon, all these things I've shelved, but I've been quietly researching and looking at, all come together in one timeline that actually confirms the whole Ice Age vapor canopy scenario that I've been telling you guys about. I just didn't know how it fit.
Well, what I like about it is that you built up your ammunition before bringing out the big guns at the end there, in a way that if you were to tune in at the end of that episode, you'd be bewildered. But I caught it toward the beginning, and it really built up to a grand thing where you're like, this is irrefutable at this point. And not being compartmentalized is very important, I think, with any niche or genre whatsoever, because all of these things are connected. So if you're a biologist and you're studying tadpoles, there's to not connect that biology to, say, electricity or amino acids, or, you know, especially like occult subjects, which everything ties into, is almost a mistake of all of these particular sects of study, because no one's looking at each other, so no one can grow. All of these fields become more and more narrow and pigeonholed, you know?
I agree, man. Absolutely. It's the multidisciplinary approach is the only way to really look at something, because other than that, you would just be following uniformitarian principles, which is going to keep you hyper focused on a single discipline and unable to keep up even with the literature published and peer reviewed in that discipline, much less even looking at any others. The greatest researchers in the past always came from outside the fields for which they corrected. Emmanuel Velikovsky, Hans Bellamy. These men were like Hans Horberger, an engineer, and yet he understood the history of the world better than anybody. Hans Bellamy just wrote about it better. Emmanuel Velikovsky, a psychologist. But the psychologist went through the history of the world and blew the scientific community out of the water by making predictions they later verified 30 and 40 years later, and put together a history and chronology of the world that makes sense from a catastrophist perspective, pissing all the uniformitarians off. So yeah, it's necessary. Tell me about these videos on your channel, man, because I've been going through it and I'm like, dude, you've touched on some hellified topics on your channel, man.
Well, I think my channel is a lot more about speculation and hunches and intuition than it is cold, hard research, which is a nice dynamic to have with you, because you are almost the opposite of me in that way. However, while I was listening to your episode last night, I wrote down certain episodes of mine that fall directly into that grand theory that you proposed last night. So before I talk about some of them, I want to touch on what you're just saying about researchers who come from the outside looking in. They're already zoomed out. And what's so important about that is, like, we would still be calling the pyramids a tomb if it wasn't for Chris Dunn, who was an engineer. He's a machinist engineer, you know? So it's like one of and he looked at the pyramids and said, that's not a tomb. So it's like one of those things where, whether you agree with his specific theory of it being a power plant or not, he changed the game for everyone, because the reality of the matter is, whether it's pyramids, the Gnostic texts, a lot of ancient science, occult sciences, they're being published and studied by theologians and people who they started studying these things before we had machines with the pyramids. We're studying the Gnostic Gospels before we knew about electromagnetic technologies and stuff like that. So we were looking at these things through eyes not mature enough to know what we are looking at. We think it's all just religious fervor, but there's a lot more to this. But so the reptilians and the interbreeding with human beings and stuff like that. So I guess about 5 months ago, I did an episode called Built by Nephilim, and I kick off the episode talking about how the existence of giants back in the day that were a result of two different species of humanoid mating is actually not that weird if you look at ligers. So like if you've ever seen a liger, they're these gigantic 1,300-pound cats, far bigger than lions or tigers. But the only way that can happen is if a lion, a male lion, mates with a female tiger, and that growth hormone suppressant of the tiger is overrode by the lion's genome, and it becomes a gigantic beast. Whereas if a male tiger, which is the less dominant species, mates with a if it's opposite, flipped around, like a male tiger with a female lion, it won't have that same thing. So that led me down this rabbit hole of giantism, like that.
I have never heard of a liger. never heard of a
Really?
liger. No.
So yeah, if you
Wow.
get a chance, please check out Built by Nephilim, because that's how I kick it off. Because there being giants in the past is in the bag. It would be weirder if that wasn't the case by now, because not only is that what mythology tells us, who built the pyramids in the first place, but we see that as a fact in biology, that whenever a male of a dominant species mates with a less dominant species, they become gigantic. But the question becomes then, who was that species of people that mated with female women? Now, in the Bible, it was the fallen angels. They gave birth to the Nephilim, which the Nephilim were the giants, right? But this species, that they were described as serpent-like features. The fallen angels had like almost Asian features, high cheekbones, weird skin, with eyes that could see in the dark, you know, which goes into the whole underground cities thing. But it's like, where did those guys come from? And that's where your same theory ties right into the episode I put out after Built by Nephilim. I put an episode called Mars Immutable, which, again, not to come unhinged right off the bat here, but if we look at where did this reptilian species come from that created these giants, well, Mars in mythology has always been male. That's been the whole, it's like a male planet, whereas, you know, the mythology.
Yeah, you're right. Mars, Aries,
right.
let's see, Mars, Aries, Meru, Merad, Merodach, Almeradak, all the way back, all of its permutations. It's always male, right?
Very left brain in nature, you know, whereas, you know, Earth, Gaia is very feminine. So even if you look at it not literally as flesh and blood beings, even if you look at it as spiritually speaking, it still works in such a way where some sort of bloodline or sentient energy entered our domain of Earth from Mars, and the women gave birth to these giants, and they spent all the rest of their time trying to get home using these stargates, and that's where they say we got our technology from in the first place. But I was baffled as going through your presentation about how our subjects seem to match, especially now. I didn't send you this one, but I have an episode called Reptiles in the Mirror, which hypothesizes dinosaurs, you know, millions of years of being on Earth and never really doing anything. It's very strange, you know, and you touched upon that in an irrefutable way with all of the relics of dinosaurs living side by side with humans, and their bones being, their fossils being on the surface.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense, because whenever we find an ancient relic, we are told it's how old it is, not because you can't carbon date it if it's stone.
Right.
We're told how old it is by how deep in the sediment. They'll be like, oh, this is 300,000 years old because it was this deep underground. Meanwhile, you got a Tyrannosaurus Rex arm sticking up out of the beach. Like,
right.
What's going on with that?
Listen, I didn't have time to go into my community has seen the evidence. I didn't have time to do it in that video, but I should have done another clip. You know how I did those little short video clips that showed you all the pictures while I gave the narration? Right. Well, I should have done another one, because it is unimaginable how many human artifacts we have found in coal seams, and yet coal seams are always underneath dinosaur bones. How is this possible?
Right.
And it's not just we're not talking about Neolithic artifacts. We're talking about metallurgical, ornate, very artistic, badass, almost zero oxygen and carbon content in the iron. Oh, we don't know how the smelting process was. We're talking about spoons, forks, spheres, all kinds of human manufactured artifacts in coal seams, thousands of feet underground, but our dinosaur tracks and dinosaur skeletons are on the surface. It's a mind fuck.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And we're living in a time, especially with the internet and guys like yourself, where the original timeline that we've been given, well, not even just a timeline, but just the
whole model of reality.
The reality as we know it is coming completely unhinged at the seams. And we're going to need some kind of supplementary theories in line in order to have our bearings in moving forward to the future. Because if none of what we've been taught is correct, which I mean, we're showing now that our schooling system was actually put into place by these satanic cults, not to get too wild in that direction.
Oh, you know, say on my channel, I don't have any filters, man. Rockefeller looks like a reptile. You know what I mean?
Right.
The older Rockefeller gets, you saw the pictures of him. He literally lost everything of humanity and looks like a damn reptile.
Right. And it's that amygdala. These people are thinking from their amygdala. So it's what I try to tell people is that it doesn't matter if we are speaking about this as an allegory or as literal, because the fact of the matter is that this is something that is happening and it needs to be diffused and it's coming to light. If it comes to light without us being prepared, we are going to be in a whole mess. That's why it's important to give some kind of narrative in place to prepare people for what is to come, because now, I mean, it's happening so fast now. You know, it's coming unraveled so fast that whenever something finally emerges, we need to know what's going on. Like, for example, they're already talking about, it's like clockwork, some stuff about aliens. Every time this stuff comes out where we are on to them, so to speak, they hit us with aliens. And if they finally pull their big, grandiose, you know, we have made contact event, and the population doesn't realize that this is something that has been put on for not for just for our entertainment, but for our hypnosis, well, then we're just going to dig that hole again and again and again.
Oh, listen, it's deeper than that, because when they do pull the alien card, they're also the only way they're going to be able to make it work, because it's not going to be painted as an alien invasion. It's going to be painted as alien colonization. They're coming here to help us exchange technologies, make the world peaceful. It's all going to be covered up as some religious Jesus is the true, you know, serpent on Moses' staff type deal. They're going to paint all this together. And a lot of people are going to fall for it. It's not going to be designed to shock the world. It's going to be designed to answer all the questions as to why all the religions have serpents in them, and they're going to paint it peacefully, like the Sumerians did. Enki was represented as a serpent, yet he was considered a benefactor. As soon as they pull that alien card, worldwide, all borders are going to be open. They're going to over legislate everything as being racial. There's going to be no racism allowed. Anything that even, everything, it's going to be totally open. If you do anything that even looks like you're prejudicial against anybody else, you know, you understand? Everything's totally open borders. Everything's totally open policy.
That would be the idea, right? If there's
because when the tertiary field gets here and they can't shape change, they need to have a world already groomed to accept everything.
Right.
We already have guys walking around in fairy suits in Los Angeles, man, with their little skirts and little high heels on, with big old bushy beards and stuff. You're not allowed to publicly persecute them. They're protected in their little rainbow rights. You understand? And so we're already getting to that point, but it's going to get worse.
I don't mind seeing a guy walking down the street dressed up like a lady, but what I do mind is a person who is willfully ignorant about what led up to those things. And certain people have their shadow archetype well embedded into, you know, which is again from the amygdala, and it's so not integrated into their own, because a guy who is the opposite of that fella also has a shadow archetype that's not been integrated into his character. So both are going to fear each other in such a way that is going to cause more division and stuff like that. And the more division there is, you have the more friction that can be taken advantage of, especially if you have an exterior, some kind of pseudo race coming in to introduce itself. They're going to want us to all, well, and I use quotes here, unite. And that means giving up freedoms and stuff like that in order to.
Oh, I agree. So yeah, it's that might have been a bad example, but I'm only using it as a frame of reference as to where all this is going. You're going to be forced by legislation to accept everything.
Right.
I believe that this has a lot to do with what the whole Epstein deal is too. And I don't want our video to go down that road, but it does look like there's a major push once the full list is known of how many people were indulging in this, and they're all personal heroes to different people in society. You looked up to these politicians, you looked up to these actors, you looked up to these singers, all these people involved. You're going to find out they've been sleeping with kids. So there's a major push,
right,
to normalize, this activity. And
it's so ironic that there's no like metal bands or metal singers on that list to be found. I don't know about the future, but it's ironic how these people who you have seen in this light, and then there's these people that you've seen in this light, and all of a sudden it's reversed. Like all of these evil, villainous characters in our life are not to be found on the Epstein list. Meanwhile, all of the people who were told to look up to, even in the scientific fields, are on that list doing the most heinous things.
Ain't no band members from Atreyu, LA Gun, the old LA Guns. You don't see the any members from Machine Head on there, Mushroom Head, Five Finger Death Punch.
It's
Adelita's Way. None of those members are on that list.
You didn't even see Marilyn Manson, and that's you're like almost like, wow, what was he doing instead? But no, yeah. But all right, so if we are to straight up talking about these reptilian beings not being able to hide anymore due to the veil thinning and stuff like that, which I still need to look up some more with what you're talking about there. But
not being able to hide. You just mentioned a huge deal. I let it go. I let it go out of. We were too busy, man. I was thinking about bearded dudes in fairy suits. So hey,
well,
you mentioned the amygdala. Listen, man, that's a huge key here, because I have another file full of data. I was going to do a video on it, but there are times, and what's really interesting is the dates that are assigned to these discoveries. But I have 2 books in my library and a whole bunch of ancillary data on the long cranial deformation from the back, where the back of the craniums grow back.
Right.
So it's I am wondering if this is like vapor canopy human hybrids. This only happens during the 300-400 years of the vapor canopy high pressure environment, ultraviolet light. It's when certain people grow these craniums. Because remember, they were always regarded by post-vapor canopy societies as the rulers. Those are the elite. Those are the rulers. When vapor canopies collapse, what is the first thing all these indigenous tribes do? They start getting boards and flattening the foreheads of their infants, because they want the back of the infants' heads to grow back, because they always want their sons and daughters to be considered as the elite. But these are but what the studies that have been done on these elongated skulls is that they're not artificial. Those are legit, and some of those skulls are huge. But the indigenous peoples of South America and Southeast Asia really did apply boards, but it was after the vapor canopies were gone. I could have included all that. To me, it was already information overload, but I could have included all that in there too.
Well, it all ties together, and what's very interesting is how quickly our genomic makeup changes with our environment, which is not a huge surprise. We look at radiation from neutron stars like Cygnus X2, and which has been proven to accelerate the evolutionary traits of fruit flies in a lab. That's just the first thing that we happen to study with that artificial radiation made in the lab as to what Cygnus X2 has been doing for thousands of years. And they drew the bird up on the cave wall with a beam of light coming from it. Well, not light, but they drew a line coming from the bird and into the shaman's head. Because if you're in a cave completely shielded from all sunlight, starlight, moonlight, the only light that can come through, and I use light in quotes here, is that that radiation that comes from neutron stars like that. And that's a slow type of evolutionary thing where 40,000 years ago, they started painting on walls and no one knows why the whole world did it all at once. Well, it seems like that was the last time that our Earth was staring down the barrel of that galactic center where Cygnus X2 is. We'd be getting that radiation head on. But our genome doesn't just change slowly. Our direct environment, like say the shift between an ice age or a vapor canopy, which the vapor canopy goes into my oldest Saturn videos as to how they were able to see that. But I digress, because if our environment, our direct environment changes, especially when it happens fast, and I surely believe that these environmental changes happened almost overnight. And
it's volcanoes. Volcanoes are the trigger mechanism that create vapor canopies because of the amount of moisture coming. It's not just smoke and ash and pumice coming out of volcanoes. It's tremendous amount of
water,
moisture,
right.
and the particulates attach to that moisture and suspend them in the mesosphere. The particulates eventually come back down. They're rained back down, sometimes as carbonaceous material, but the moisture stays in the mesosphere, creates a greenhouse effect. So it's several weeks to a few months. We can go from blue sky, sunny days to straight vapor canopy that doesn't disappear for centuries.
Yeah. And then our children resulting from that would have to adapt to that, and that genome is going to change that the way that we're very good at adapting. But I think evolutionary
the adaptation is done at conception. So you and I may have some issues if a vapor canopy appeared in our life. But one of the benefits is the increased oxygen. You and I are going to act even better, more optimum. There's more to breathe. But we're not going to be used to that heavy humidity. It's going to be really humid, but we're going to be able to breathe great. But our offspring, our children at the moment of conception, that those latent genes are going to be activated, and what is born is a human that's adapted to the vapor canopy environment. Those genes are already encoded in there. It's not natural selection. It's not developmental. They're activated, fully functioning genome that is for this purpose. The DNA of humans is for multiple different environments. So it's what it's for.
That becomes not weird when you consider the fact that a mother's breast milk is actually it's a two-way street. The saliva from the baby is being absorbed by the mama's nipple, and she's reading that with her DNA that has no idea it's even happening, and then her breast milk takes on the formulation that is needed for that baby in its current state, according to the environment that baby is in. Of course, now we seem to have a lot of bottle-fed babies drinking lead and mercury and aluminum, but again, digress, But but also another thing that makes giantism not weird is the idea of that vapor canopy. We can accept that the sloth was 4 times the size of woolly mammoths, all of these creatures, bugs. They were all gigantic when there was more oxygen in the air in a higher pressure environment. And then we say, well, that was them, but humans, that didn't apply to them. Why not?
Yeah, it applied to us. Yeah, we were faster, bigger. Listen, in a vapor canopy environment, I've even entertained the idea that the reason humans were getting along with reptiles so much, and because if you look at the 2 sets of figurines that have been found in 2 different areas of the world from 2 different time periods, those figurines show dynamic interaction. Humans are doing surgical procedures on dinosaurs, and these are recent. And humans are riding, domesticating, herding, hunting. So what I'm thinking is, we must be putting off a pheromone that reptiles are cool with. We must be putting off, because this is how the animal kingdom works. It's not eyesight. It's only the predators really rely on eyesight. Everything else is pheromones. Animals know each other, but they know if you're a carnivore, they know if you're a herbivore, they know if you're an omnivore. So that's how the animals deal with each other, through the sense, and their olfactory senses are off the chart. But ours are not. But we do put off an interesting scent. We put off an interesting scent that if you remain calm in the ocean, the pheromones that are being leaked into the saline solution of the ocean itself are amplified. And this is why calm people do not get bit by sharks. Calm. It is the cortisol putting off pheromones of anxiety and panic in the water that causes fish to attack you. So this imagine in a vapor canopy environment when everything about us is accentuated and amplified.
Right.
We're putting off pheromones that reptiles, because we evidently have a modicum of reptilian DNA. And that's the whole premise of this guy's book right here.
Who's that?
R.A. Boulay. This dude
Okay.
worked for the Department of Defense, but he was a cryptologist with the NSA. And in his retirement, he moonlighted. Well, all his life he moonlighted as a historian, even though he's working for the government in cryptography. He was decoding things on computers and stuff. So he's even given a shot at the Voynich manuscript. But R.A. Boulay is he wanted to go through the history of the world, and chronologically, he's dated many things that are absolutely correct. I've shown in my Archaix chronology. But his idea is, look, man, guys, you may not like it, but the entire history of the world, all the traditions of the world, the texts that we have available to us, and the genetic studies on the human body show that we are compatible with reptiles.
Yeah,
this is what it is. Yeah, man.
Things like the Voynich manuscript all of a sudden become not so mysterious whenever you add all of these other elements to it, and that's such an important how we first started talking about all of these sciences are compartmentalized. Like, you know, so if you have the Book of Ja, which, by the way, I don't have what you have. I have to print these things out from FedEx whenever I get one that I can't find or track down. But
yeah.
But I have these Gnostic, what they call Gnostic Gospels. And I've been saying that Gospels is the wrong word because, Jason, look at that. That's in the Book of Ja, in an ancient Gnostic manuscript. And that's not a gospel. That's an electrical diagram.
Yeah, well, the books of Yao, and I have a book published called Lost Scriptures of Giza, my very first published book in 2006. And I went through the books of, I don't know how it's pronounced, Yao, or it's Jeo or Yao, but I went through the material in there and I compared it with Hermetic material and I compared it with Egyptian material. And I showed that, guys, the books of Yao are a description of the Great Pyramid in Egypt and what its possible function is.
And that starts to make sense, especially when you understand how impossibly so the Great Pyramid was never mentioned in biblical canon. What are the chances? Like, how is that at all possible? But if we're looking at it through a different lens like that, well, then all of a sudden the pyramid is popping up everywhere, you know. And this Book of Ja it reads like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but it looks like the lesser keys of Solomon, you know. And it makes you wonder about these electrical diagrams, sigils and whatnot, as opposed to us being like electrical creatures, which ties into the Voynich manuscript. Because if you're looking at the human body as an electrical suit, like that's the life force, the chi, the prana of the human physical vehicle, that's what is alive. You know, a brain is just a ball of flesh. You can hold it in your hand. It's not alive, but all the physical components are still there. But it's the electricity, that plasma, that makes it alive. If we look at it through that scope, all of a sudden this ancient text and the Voynich manuscript as a sort of a cheat code of elixirs and alchemy, it ties hand in hand. The only way that these texts don't make sense is if we're looking at them through superstitious religious fervor, which is how they've been presented to us.
Yeah, well, you make a good point about the electricity, the plasma, because in a vapor canopy environment, we may figure out the actual engineering function of the Great Pyramid in just days. Because in a totally different environment, in the same environment the Great Pyramid was built in.
Right.
Once that environment returns, we may understand why humans can easily move multi-ton blocks. And maybe not themselves, but other technologies will become available.
Right.
So the reason I feel that we're looking at during a vapor canopy totally different technological apparatus is because you can't ignore the fact that in a super high humid environment of high pressure, electricity is going to take on new fundamentals.
Yeah. It's more powerful.
Yes, it's way more powerful, and it's more abundant. It's more abundant. And the very power sources that we're going to need are already available because of the moisture we have in the air now. Tesla proved that we can electrically power things over great distances in the air. But imagine a vapor canopy environment of high pressure
Right.
that is absolutely packed with moisture.
Right.
The things we can do with electricity then is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Well, the atmosphere environment itself becomes a conductor. And if that affects how things are conducted with electricity, that ties directly to magnetism, because electricity and magnetism go hand in hand. And what I think a lot of skeptical people, or people who are stuck in their current timeline, don't understand is that the laws of physics are local to what we see and what we have. Those, our rules of subatomics, physics, quantum entanglement, you name it, those laws of physics are here right now as is. If you change the environment, the laws of physics are different. We can look at a galaxy that is, so many million light years away, and we see the way it works. We're like, the way that's working is impossible. No, it's not necessarily impossible. Our laws of physics are different than the laws of physics over there, because the laws of physics are local, and this has been proven.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we refuse to believe that those laws of physics over there can be different here with only a short amount of time. But if you change what's going on the planet on that macrocosmic scale, well, that's going to change the physics here for us, and our technology. When we build things in that environment, it'll be suited to that environment. So those things won't necessarily work anymore today, but at the same time, this technology that we're using right now won't work in that environment.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you another scenario about something you just mentioned. So from our perspective right now in the heliocentric model, if we were on a planet or whatever, we look north at the constellation of Cygnus. So it's the Swan.
Right.
And you mentioned Cygnus X2.
Right.
So ever since 1892, the region of the Cygnus Rift has always been a very peculiar region of space. And the evidence shows that the Cygnus Rift is either a compressed star, a frozen star, or it's a full event horizon, because there's nothing that black and opaque. And over a 60-year period, we have photographed the heavens, and we have seen stars disappear on the right side of the Cygnus Rift. It's a tear in space. And then they reappear like 60 years later on the other side of the tear. So what we have here is something in the sky that's local.
Yeah.
The only way you could ever see parallax like that is that the Cygnus Rift is very close. It's local, and yet it doesn't emit any light. It is a rift in space. It's a tear. So we get this idea that black holes are frozen stars, compressed stars, because that's what our astrophysicists tell us. They tell us that when a star implodes, it becomes a frozen star. It's called frozen only because it's not giving off the same amount of heat as a luminary.
Right.
But it's also a compressed star. It's a compressed star because the actual gravity well has created a situation. It's called singularity. In the singularity, the light photons, it still is bright, and a black hole may be brighter than our own sun.
Right.
And almost as close.
Right.
However, you can't see it because the light photons fold back, just like you see the imagery of the flares that emit from the sun's surface. What do they always do? They curl back, they fold back. So I'm just going by the model. That they've given us. The Cygnus Rift looks like it's one of these event horizons.
Yeah.
And it was started off as a sphere. It flattened, it compressed, it flattened out. It's a rip in space.
Right.
And now north is where we look at the Cygnus Rift. But all the evidence shows that it was originally Nemesis, and it was south of the solar system. We are looking at everything completely upside down now.
Right.
Two different planes intersecting. One plane has flipped. And everything in it has flipped like a magnet. And this is what caused all these cataclysmic episodes of watching Venus and Earth come too close to Earth. It confused Immanuel Velikovsky. He literally thought Venus and Earth almost collided. It's not what happened. It's our plane that went very close to the Mars plane, very close to it's always Occam's razor.
Yeah.
All these different objects in the sky didn't come close to us. No, we went too close to them. That simplifies everything. So also when you tie that in with the Titius-Bode law, which shows the mathematical distribution of the luminaries from the surface of the sun, Earth is the only one that doesn't fit. So again, Occam's razor is satisfied. It's that our plane is the intrusive plane. The rest of the system is normal the way it was supposed to be, and it will be even perfectly normal once we exit this, once we return to the Nemesis plane. But what I'm saying is you mentioned Cygnus X2, and it was 1892 when Professor Astronomer Bernard, who they wouldn't defy him because he was already very prestigious,
right?
But they killed his research with silence.
Right.
But the man in 1892 reported a vast dark object coming out of the Cygnus rift.
Wow.
And coming toward our system. There was so much international pressure on him to shut the hell up that 2 years later, in his own Royal Astronomical Society notes, they had amended what he saw to dark nebula. But that's not what he originally reported.
Right. These first editions are often really updated, especially after the author dies. And yeah, that's what makes old books, I think, so important, is that though they take a lot of liberties with the new books. If you get a Manly P. Hall book from Barnes and Noble, it's going to have differences from the original, which I think is a gigantic problem, because that's been going on since, I mean, the Bible is changed, you know.
Listen, I'm going to tell you a perfect scenario, and I'm going to say that this is a theory. I'm just going to say this is theory. William Cooper published a badass book called Behold a Pale Horse.
Yeah.
All right? One of the chapters is the full transcript of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. All right.
Okay.
I'm just telling you, this is a theory, but a Jewish company that's publishing books started republishing William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse. Okay. Now, there's other publishers that are still publishing the original, and you can get them today, that have that chapter, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. But the Jewish publishing company, like I said, it's all theory. The Jewish publishing company that's producing copies are identical. The whole book is identical, but that chapter's been changed out for something else.
Right. Yeah. That's poisonous, especially when, you know, the author ain't around anymore, because, you know, he got shot outside of his house checking the mail.
After his wife and kid, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's an ugly scenario. But let me backtrack you real quick to black holes, because I find this to be very interesting about how black holes are a game changer in everything we understand in physics or whatever. And there's a lot of speculation as to what they are and what they are not. But there's certain things, like, for example, in the electric universe theory, that in that model, you all of a sudden don't need a lot of these filler terms like dark matter, dark energy, and a lot of anomalies that are weird about black holes, and even the sun, are answered by that. So, like, if we were to contemplate a black hole as, say, not a thing, it's not actually a 3D object, but instead it's a tear. Like you were saying, it's a hole in the fabric of space itself. So the thing that is a thing is actually space-time. And what a black hole may or may not be, this is also kind of theory, but it kind of checks out, is that it's a rip in that fabric that leads onto the other side of that, which is a mystery. But our cosmosis for all of humanity has always been tripartite. We've always considered the universe or reality as being 3 layers. There's the heavens, or pleroma, whatever, and then there's the earth realm down below. But in between is this thin layer that they considered the intermediate realm. This is where, like, Jehudi comes from, our psychopomp figures, mercurial figures, basically. And that's where supposedly quantum physics takes place, because quantum physics is the interaction between the above and below world, which depend on each other based on observation. A black hole most likely is a not a glitch, but a tear that leads into that other realm where human perception ends. It's not a limitation of our instruments, but we ourselves, our biological suit, our sentience has a brick wall there at that point, whether it's subatomics or macrocosmically speaking for a black hole. Our sentient awareness, our observation stops at that point, and we can't go any further. And we consider it to be a limitation of science and a mystery, when really what might be going on here is that instead of the universe being all one kind of reality, it's those three layers of reality, and there's the other side of which we have absolutely no idea about, and more scary, we can't know anything about, and we torture ourselves all day trying to figure it out. I know I do. But
So Paul LaViolette, he's got some really interesting theories. He's a theoretical physicist and astrophysicist that I quote frequently. I quoted him yesterday in yesterday's video for his gamma saturation history of the Earth, and he's got an interesting take on black holes.
okay.
He from a mathematical perspective, he thinks the black holes go into another mathematical copy of our own reality, and yet there are slight nuances. There's a whole nother copy of our reality with all different intelligent beings living in it and doing that. And the black hole takes expended material from our reality mathematically, and it goes and builds the reality that's adjacent to this plane. At the same time, it's the event horizons of that plane feed other adjacent realities and planes. But in our reality, we're being fed from other planes of mathematical constructs through pulsar and quasar activity.
Yeah.
Which is the creation. There's matter, not just sound. It's not just pulses of sound and light. It's matter coming out of some of these quasars and pulsars coming into the fields. It's like they're generating matter that's being distributed everywhere. At the same time, black holes in other locations are taking matter out. And it wouldn't make sense if this is a single dimension, but in a multi-dimensional concept, they're all feeding. It's a circulatory system between planes.
Yeah, that radiation affects us, and that coming from that radiation that we are receiving is described in the Pistis Sophia as radiating from the Sophia herself. She's described as formless sentience of pure. She's a being of pure light, right? An aeon. And whenever she saw that she had accidentally created the mineral world, which would, literally speaking, is our physical dimension, on the other side of that pleroma, she saw that, wow, these are my children. These humans are my children. So I have a responsibility now to endow them with my light, with my sentience. And it said that she infused into these clay beings of mineral her wisdom. And that's kind of our electrical sentience, so to speak. And it makes sense in that form, especially if, so there's another Gnostic gospel besides the Pistis Sophia that is it's called Marciones, and it's also expressed a little bit in Tripartite's tractate, where it describes the pleroma as, for lack of a better description, a sphere of like a sphere of glass that precipitates, or I should say condensates, reality on its surface. So our reality is like a thin veil that is precipitating or condensating from this orb. Now, of course, it's not actually literally an orb or literally a sphere. That's how our 3D mind can grasp it, but it basically condensates from that pleroma as matter from this syntax error, which I've been working with lately. I think is the fine structure constant, 1/137, which is what it takes for subatomic nothingness or energy potentials to become a matter in the first place. It's not a case where people think that when you zoom in on the atom, you see no matter. and then you zoom in any more, protons, electrons, there's still no matter. You go even deeper into quarks. There's no matter to be found. We're like, where is the matter?
Ultimately, you're left with an oscillating field.
Right. So we think that if enough of those oscillating fields of nothing, no matter, come together, all of a sudden it becomes tangible. It's just simply not the case. In fact, it's not even logical. Any number multiplied by 0 is still 0. Right. So if you think about the fine structure constant, 1/137, which is the ratio of electromagnetic energy that it takes to dance with light to create matter in the first place, this seems to be quite literally the fall of Sophia, or the syntax error expressed in Marcinese that Sophia emitted for matter to exist in the first place. And it's actually described in Marcinese as a lingual code or a mathematical syntax error that made matter in the first place.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you say matter, it's such a mind f, man, because it's one of the reasons I'm a simulationist, and it's because of my diving into the quantum theory and how I'm really, I've gone through a lot of the Gnostic material as I've shown my community, and I haven't gone as deep as like John Lamb Lash or you, but I went deep enough to realize, okay, well, look, I've gone through the Brahmanic, I've looked at the Puranic commentaries. Here's the Maya, here's the core fundamentals. I like to strip everything down to its lowest common denominators. Right. And what I'm left with after going through all the religious literature is that all I'm doing is looking at what humans have left as descriptors, which is nothing but quantum camouflage. They're describing the quantum mechanics without having the technical knowledge to do so. Right. And basically, everything is illusory, everything is Maya, everything is the dream time. It's the spirit walk of the Native Americans. So if nothing is truly physical, then this isn't a physical reality, it's a perceived reality. Right. And if it's a perceived reality, what you're talking about, the fine structure constant, which is very integral to my own research and the whole Phoenix phenomenon of 138, the heartbeat of our experience here. Well, we're dealing with a perceivable reality, and a lot of people can't deal with that. They have to have a physical world. They can't mentally divorce themselves. I mean, even people that I admire and look up to, I'm gonna name him, John Lamb Lash, really impressed me with his erudition, really impressed me. I wasn't thinking I was going to get impressed with his book, but I was, and I never even really got to talk about it. But the John Lamb Lash he has a problem with simulation theory, and I can't not see the world as a simulation because it's not here. There's nothing really physical. It's all a matter of perception. And if it's a perceived reality and not a physical reality, then our physics constants and everything just dissolves to pure programming. If everything is just pure programming, now it changes all these things like aeons and archons and are these protocols. If we're the only things really intelligent here, then everything else must be backfield programming.
Yeah, it's kind of backwards. And I think the reason simulation theory gets a bad rap is because of our pop culture simulacra of how we see a simulation. I mean, The Matrix was a great movie, but everybody immediately assumes that it involves some kind of hard drive or a motherboard or some kind of like software that an alien race has developed. And that is distracting them from the facts that our universe is fundamentally holographic. Every single part has the information of the rest of the whole. And we can look at things like the Fibonacci sequence and the code in our DNA and in the binary within our atomic structures. And we can say, oh, these are all the same thing. And this is a blueprint, a code for how we see reality. And that's kind of the main point, is that's how we see reality. Therefore, that's what reality is. It's how we see it. It takes the observer in order for it to exist in the first place. So for it to be a simulation is in the bag. That part's already done. What I think needs to be cleared up with some of these guys is that, okay, but it's not in a video game on the hard drive of some dude playing Sims up in the heavens, you know? It's more fundamental than that, you know?
I agree. I mean, the sun could be the absolute projector of the entire simulated environment, and the moon can just be a relay. It's just as simple
Right.
as that. A diode and a relay. They're actually projecting this whole damn
Yeah.
experience. But
And if you think about the way Cygnus is lined up, so Cygnus is the Northern Cross for a reason, because it is crossing. If you look at the Milky Way galaxy, it's that big cloud across the sky. I know you know, but Cygnus is dead center, crossing literally that galactic center on the so by nature, on the other side of Cygnus, way down the line, is our galactic black hole. It's they say it's a black hole, might be something more to do with plasma, but it's there. And and so if we are staring down the barrel of Cygnus, we are our sun, I mean, on that sine wave, because as our sun goes around the galactic center, it's on that sine wave, it's going up and down, you know, and we follow suit. So if we are lined up with Cygnus, well, then the black hole at the center of our galaxy is also right there. So if you think about the center of our galaxy siphoned through Cygnus and then through our sun, and then, of course, Saturn and the moon as a refractor, like almost like a satellite dish beaming a consciousness limiting code into our DNA, turning off our junk DNA. Well, then the reality that we would see would be filtered by that same biological meat suit that is conditioned for seeing that in the first place, like a feedback loop, which I think is important, because it's almost too simple when you think about how much, it's a cliche to say it, in fact, how much of the light frequency band we can see, how much of the sound frequency band we can see is very small, and even smaller is what we can touch and feel. If you think about the fact that sound, things we can touch, taste, and what we can see, you know, color and sound are the same thing. It's a frequency. The reason we think they're different is because our organs are different. So the difference between color, light, and sound is actually the organ in which we take it in. So we are literally designed to see it that really thin way. If there was another sense to be turned on, it would pick up on that same frequency.
Dude, you're making my case. For years, I've been telling my community the only way this experience is possible for an intelligence and awareness, which is the true you, to be jacked into this experience, a perceivable reality, is if you were made to interface with that reality itself. And the only way that happens is through the central nervous system.
Right.
Because they don't do what the medical world and scientific world has told us they do. They do not do that.
Right.
Remember, everything is the exact opposite of the truth. Our brain is a filtering system of the central, so we don't get information overload. We see the world in reverse. You know how the optic nerves work in the orbital, everything. Our brain turns the images completely over. We actually see everything upside down, and and we only actually hear a small bandwidth. We see less than like 94.5% of the electromagnetic spectrum. Cats see way more than we do. There are many videos online where people can prove, you can absolutely prove that cats see way more than we do. They're always responding to visual stimuli that we just don't see. It's very real to the cats. So we're wearing a piece of the construct, and that's how we interface with it.
Right.
So it's like because we are made to believe and feel that this is physical, the rest of the world becomes physical too. Being jacked into the avatar is what makes the experience real.
Yeah. And that requires us as an interface, which that is what makes a lot of these lost gospels, these Gnostic tractates, to be scientific in the first place. So it's always talking about an observer effect. In fact, in the tractate, it says that the universe was created for the educated observer, and it happens through him. And then in the three steles of Seth, which is also it's not a gospel, but it was found in Nag Hammadi. It says that the universe, if I'm going to misquote this, but it says that man does not project reality, so to speak, like a co-creator, but instead a man is the place in which reality becomes aware of itself. And it depends on that. That's why every single religion, Vedic, Gnostic, Christian, no matter what you choose, it has this idea that the above realms are depending on us to come through for it to exist. And it's, a lot of people read that and they say, oh, that means that we're creators of reality. That means we create reality. And that's a really beautiful way to see it, especially compared to the measurement problem and double slit experiment. But the way that they phrased it all the way back in the day without this terminological jargon is that we are a place where the universe wakes up to experience itself. And it's laid out in a way. Personification and mythology make things simple, so we don't need the terminological jargon that we have,
right
nowadays.
I mean, even as far back as the Middle Ages, bleeding into the Renaissance period, we have Vitruvian man, Vitruvian theory, and the philosophy of the time that man was the measure of all things, and that man was the link between the macrocosm and the microcosm.
Yeah.
So I can agree with that. In the Archaix model, in my personal model that I've extended to my family, and is that this is a fixed mathematical construct, and it's of somebody else's design. We are in it, and we're flowing through it. We're flowing through these experiences by wearing some of the hardware that allows us as software to go through this experience. But I tell my community all the time, we're not here to change the world. We can't change the world. And people get really frustrated with me about that. But this is because the construct is fixed programming, independent. It's the collective. It is independent of the individual.
Right.
But the individual can come into this experience and be a world builder, can create amazing things, can manipulate the mathematical holosphere to such a point by cognition and intent, and actually moving the avatar in the direction that the construct will help it. It actually helps us, like a co-creator relationship. It helps us build these things, but the construct is also going to defend its programming.
Yeah.
You can build the world for you and those around you, but in the end, you'll exit that avatar, and the constructual programming will remain unchanged. It will continue. It has protocols. It's something else built this for us to enjoy, for us to experience, for us to go through. Some people want to regard it as a prison. I do not.
Right.
I do not. I regard behaviors as imprisoning.
Yeah.
And you can subject yourself to dungeon programming all you want, or you can be free. There's a lot of people who do not suffer anything that some of our listeners have suffered all their lives, because for some reason they entered the construct and were never put in contact with some of these poisonous, toxic dungeon programs, this negative default programming, and they never succumb to it. So they turn around and live these awesome lives, and they see other people's pain and sorrows and what they're going through, but it has no attachment to their own existence. They're flowing through life just fine.
Right.
And this is my model. My model is you're living in two different realities at the same time while you're in this construct. One is the highly personal, where you become an amazing world builder for yourself. And the construct being a multi-tiered holographic in nature, a mathematical construct that is amorphous, will respond to you and insulate your world for you and let you pass whatever. You are making your own rules here.
Right.
So, but when you exit, you haven't changed this construct one fucking bit.
Yeah. We can change ourselves. And that's what I think the whole point is. And it's refreshing to hear you say that, because the Gnostic texts don't regard the physical world as evil. That came later when people were responding to the Gnostic text, and we have this dualistic horizontal thinking that something must be either good or it must be bad.
You think that was a early Christian import where they were trying to demonize the gnosis?
Well, I think that had a lot to do with it, but and of course they would try to they've been doing that, right? But it's also a matter of too much logic, too much left brain. When you read the Apocrypha of John and it talks about that syntax error, well, they don't describe it as a bad error. They describe it as a challenge. They describe it as doing something hard. So Sophia wanted to experience something difficult, that is to create on her own accord. And then she had to go into ignorance first, because she wanted to do as beautiful and serene as the pleroma bliss is. It's also got another side effect. It's fucking boring. And these aeons wants to experience something. They want to have friction. So they cut off a piece of themselves, and then they send it through that funnel, that tree of life, down between mercy and severity, and into a physical realm of precipitation, of forgetting. And this is the oldest myth in the book. Inanna of Sumerian, she had to give up her 7 garments to go through the gates, the 7 gates. So it's almost like it sections itself off to experience itself as other, because the number 1 can't experience itself. It can't. There is no else to experience. It needs number 2. But even then, that just created a
polarity,
a straight line, right? It's only with the number 3 that we get our first shape. That's when matter actually becomes tangible. That's something that we can hold. And by that's the Holy Trinity. That's your Trimurti of the Hindu archetype. That's Uas, Jed, and Ankh of Egyptian iconography. Those are all kind of pointing in the same direction, that you experience physical reality in order to grow. This is why Yahweh had to torment Job in the Bible, not to test his faith, but to experience what he needed to experience to grow and become whole. It's not just joy to get to become whole. You have to experience the entire realm of things. So immediately they see this world of beasts eating beasts, and the food chain, and dying, and sickness, which is all part of the experience, but they extrapolate that later as evil, as opposed to it being an experience that is needed for the soul, which is connected to spirit, to continue to grow outwardly, to become more sentient.
So 3 is the highest number. The triune is the highest number in 2-dimensional reality. It is a spiritual number. It is also the number of totality and completion. But 4, south, east, west, north, 4, the 4 corners of anything, the ancient concept of 4 corners of the world.
Right.
Do you know that 4 is the very first 3-dimensional number? It is the first number that actually you can produce a 3-dimensional form and look at it. It's the number of spirit. It's when spirit, from 3 to 4, spirit condenses into matter. 4 is the very first number that any 3-dimensional deal. It can be any shape, but it's going to have 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here. You can make it any shape you want, but it's always going to have 4 points, and it'll be hollow in the middle. It can be long and thin, whatever, but 4 is the very first. Its base reality. But 5 creates the pyramid. 5, the number 5 creates a 3-dimensional pyramid. 4, the 4 corners of the earth. 5 implies structure. 4 is not structure. 4 is just 3 is spirit, and 4, the transition from 3 to 4 is spirit turning into matter, but the matter has no form. 5 is the very first time matter has form. It'll be 4 at the bottom, 1 at the top. It's prism, it's pyramid.
Which is, that's how we experience it. Look at the Vitruvian man and the pyramid.
Yeah, but look at the number 6. You can go, you can carry it on. The number 6 is 2 triune, 2-dimensional forms interlocking to merge spirit with matter.
Right.
Man, in the number 6, 6 is the number of man. In the number 6, spirit and matter literally create the man, human.
Yeah.
This is the human type.
And that's why, so our old OG Pythagoras, he considered the number 7 to be sacred, and everybody is so quick to assume that has something to do with chakras, and I'm sure it does. But he says himself, that's the wrong one. He says himself that the number 7 is sacred because it's 3 and 4 combined. It's 3 becoming 4. It's the result.
Yeah, it is sacred. And I'm going to give you another reason why it's sacred. Just like you said, the number one stands alone by itself. The number 1 represents pure potential. It can go in any direction. It can become anything. It is complete potential just sitting there. That potential becomes restricted when 1 divides into 2. Now it's polarity. And geometrically, you're right. You're geometrically, they're right. They connect as a line.
Right.
3 now is a triune nature. Connected together, you have a triangle,
right.
Equidistant lines. It is the ultimate symbol. You see it everywhere. It's everywhere in matter. This is the ultimate spiritual number before matter exists. Right. But when the 3 add a 4th, now we have 3 dimensions, but no shape. It's just a weird. No, there's no real good shape you can make with it. It's just 4. You can make a hollow deal with 5. With 5, you have organization, you have terrestrial, you have the world, you have the mathematical construct of spirit becoming matter, building itself. With 6, spirit and matter form man, where the soul can come and live inside the matter and experience everything. But the beauty is that 1 becomes 2. 2 can become 4. Two twos become 4. But you can have a 3-sided figure and a 3-sided figure makes 6.
Right.
But there is no geometrical forms that can be combined to ever make 7. 7, the heptagram, is truly independent. There are no geometrical forms that can be emerged to make the 7. And Pythagoras had gone into great detail showing it's the unproducible number. It's the first number that appears that does this. Now, I'm not talking about taking a triangle and taking a square and putting them together. You understand? I'm not talking about that. The square doesn't even really exist because the square has no shape. When the 3 of spirit becomes the 4, it's not in 2 dimensions anymore. So it's not a square. It's in 3 dimensions. So it's a weird shape, but it's hollow. It's hollow. So it's the first appearance of matter, but it has no structure.
Right.
So Pythagoras considered 7 as the first number of order and structure in the physical reality.
Yeah. It's where something has its graspability. And that it makes sense that Plato got his Platonic solids supposedly from Pythagoras, because Plato had it that there's a perfect mathematical world above ours that is something has a shape. Well, that shape has to exist before that shape can be that shape. And it's almost that simple. And that would also be technically the pleroma, if you think about it, that world of mathematical perfection that precipitates into physical matter, a copy of that would answer that question. And this also answers a question as to what everyone is always maybe seems to be fighting about. But again, something that's super simple is the archetype of the cross. The crucifixion is not just what the cross is. Everyone is so quick to be like, oh, the first cross was the Celtic cross, or the first cross was the Cygnus Northern cross, and the Christians will be like, no, Jesus was the original cross, or whatever. If you take them all and you zoom out, what the cross originally is as simple as this direction exists and this direction exists. Those are the options we have while here in this reality. Those directions are what we got. So, when Jesus died, he left his body, his tangible flesh, on the cross, on those 4 directions, and, ascended, or he descended first or whatever. But the world we live in, I mean, hell, right here with this mandala right here, there's no coincidence there that that, you know, the cube, the black cube is what represents our world, you know, and the divine realms are often a circle within a square or what have you. And then the triangle, as you had mentioned, is the perfect intermediary there because alchemically speaking, the triangle is fire, or more specifically, the sulfur, or even more specifically, the mercurial figures that communicate between the two. Like, if you can almost think about it as, and this is in a bunch of alchemical diagrams, there'll be a circle, and then there's a triangle, sometimes upside down, that's piercing. The sharpness of the triangle is piercing a cube or a square because it's that interjection between the two, which to me sounds a lot like, and this is going to sound a little unhinged, but electricity. If your finger touches a doorknob, you have, your finger is one, the doorknob is two, and there's, if you really get this primordial with it, so not literally a finger and a doorknob, but this could be sky and ground, or planetary discharge. But you touch the doorknob and there's a discharge of electricity between the two. That is, in a primordial way, a yearning for two things to make contact. A passionate, it's almost love, is like a fundamental archetype of the universe, and how it works is love. And electricity between 2 points is a way of magnetism, of being like, get over here, I want to experience you. And that's why I think electricity has a lot more to do with all of this than we think.
Yeah, those guys, you know, on the electric universe, they're probably onto something. They're probably definitely onto something. I haven't had time to review their material, but people have directed my attention to it. But yeah, the electric universe probably makes a whole lot. I mean, if this is a mathematical construct, and I believe we live in a closed system, and I believe that the sky is holographic, showing us a picture of another reality that exists somewhere for which we are not participating in right now.
Right.
But we may return to it.
It's at this point that, and you said this once upon a time, it doesn't matter what shape the earth is. It doesn't matter if this thing is on a circuit board or whatever. If you bring this electrical, and I'm not saying that Thunderbolts Project, these guys have all the answers.
That's what they're called. That's right.
Yeah. Shout out to those guys, by the way. But I'm not saying that they've solved all the problems or that it's a one size fits all thing. What I'm saying is they add a puzzle piece to it that has been missing and is important, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, even in my own growth, my books that were published years and like 20 years ago and stuff were heliocentric, because that's the model I was raised to believe in. So when I'm researching things, this is going to blow some people's minds here. It's a perfect time to drop this.
Send me a link to your books, by the way, bro.
Okay, I will. I'm going to go ahead and drink. I'm going to drop a bomb on my community real quick in this illustration, something they've never heard before.
You can have that. Make sure you back away though.
So I'm gonna everything was a heliocentric perspective. So when people read my books, they think I'm believing in this model of planets and all, and that's cool. That's cool. I don't care. My community knows that I have moved on from that, although the model still serves our purposes by way of illustration. Now, like the two planes of Nemesis and the soul plane, how planes interact and create tertiary fields. Well, recently, I've been going through my Zecharia Sitchin studies, and I've always criticized him for his chronology, but not his research. His research is very compelling, but he spoke in anthropological terms of hundreds of thousands of years and tried to make the Shar to be a year instead of what it actually is a day. The Greeks figured it out. So when the Greeks were in Egypt in the days of Alexander, like the astronomer chronologist Callisthenes, he accurately understood when the priests of Babylon told Alexander that our astronomy goes back 450,000 years. Instantly, Callisthenes calculated and told Alexander that in the Macedonian chronology, it goes back to our 1903 BC. You follow me? Yeah. So instantly the Greeks translated the Shar system. They knew, and I've published this material showing that, man, it was even known by the Greeks that anytime you hear this huge number by the Babylonians, it's because they're counting every revolution of the stars around Alpha Draconis. That's how they counted time. They weren't years. They weren't years. So anyway, I'm going through Zecharia Sitchin's material about 2 weeks ago, and I'm putting a file together. And the Sumerians were very literal. They did not embellish. All the embellishments come from like Billy Carson. They come in and make up these stories that aren't even there. So the Sumerians said that Nibiru, which I call Nemesis X, they are one and the same. They are one and the same. But I just don't say Nibiru because of all of the Zechariah Sitch and Billy Carson attachments that have been added to the field that are not in my research. So I call it Nemesis X. But Nemesis X in the Sumerian text was literally called the planet of the crossing. And because we were trained to believe in the heliocentric model, I always assumed, Zechariah Sitchin assumed, and everybody else assumed we're dealing with an intruder planet and that the gods get on ships and come from that planet and come to Earth in 60-year windows. But that's not what's happening. Nemesis X is the planet of the crossing, meaning when that plane interferes with ours, there's a 60-year period where people can go either way. It is a plane of the crossing.
Yeah.
The Sumerians were very literal. Nibiru is exactly what Nemesis X is described to be with the tertiary field. It is when men and materials can go from plane to plane, and it's a 60-year window.
Yeah. It's an interdimensional communion. It doesn't have to be all physical matter in a Cartesian system. And that's where I think a lot of people get mixed up, is that we paint ourselves onto these mysteries, especially in the case of like making it literal. And okay, so Billy Carson, and I was so disappointed, dude. People used to call me racist because I openly never liked Billy Carson. And they always pull that card with anyone like that. That doesn't so much hold up anymore. But if you look at his naive books, like chapter 1, page 1 of his,
I ordered them.
Yeah, he says that Thoth was an alien. It's like, how much more can you paint yourself and your own sci-fi culture onto something that is so abstract that you can't understand it?
Yeah. I don't want to focus on him. I'm trying to lead. I'm trying to avoid the shill war. But man, let me tell you, that dude, he and I have a lot of agreement on a lot of things, but I can't really entertain it because Billy Carson's not a researcher. He harvests ideas from his community on Facebook, and he takes other people's material and he builds his own deal. He's not a writer. His stuff is obviously Chat GPT. I've called it out, but he's a communicator. People resonate with him. A lot of people do resonate with Billy Carson, although I don't see why, but he does have this community that resonates with him. But he's still very successful at what he does, even though his chronology sucks. It's terrible. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth was taken from Doriel in 1923, 24. There's no history to it whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, he's got all these weird, he gets on every single truther bandwagon and tries to take it to another level. Just like last night, he got 80,000 views on a video he did just yesterday talking about Jeffrey Epstein. So he's still highly successful. He's still highly successful, but he's successful as a grifter. And that's why I can't entertain him. But there's many grifters out there that I never attack. I never attack them. What people don't realize is, like Jimmy Corsetti and James True and Marty Leeds and all these people that I have focused on, the only reason I mention them, like Billy Carson, is because instead of wanting to debate core issues, they defaulted to my 17-year-old criminal history. And that's a shill move. There's no going back from that. Once you use my mistakes as a 17-year-old as a way to gain leverage with your community while you're right and I'm wrong, you're a shill. And there's no way to go back from that. And they've all done it.
Personal attacks like that will often show someone's cards.
And it's just stupid.
And not only is it, well, if people want to debate, which by the way, I'm not a debater. I enjoy rhetoric. I enjoy poetry, and I enjoy creating a show, so I don't have any particular beliefs that I'm locked into. That's why I use the word perhaps and what if throughout my entire career. I'm looking at everybody's stuff. And But if guys like Carson want to attack people's character, well, he's built a glass house, because now every time he wants to say anything, we can now just default right to his big old flub on the one guy's show that everybody knows what I'm talking about. And it's like, so his research is based in ChatGPT. And the problem with some of these guys is they call themselves an authority on these things, openly saying things like, he has said, I am the #1 theologian on ancient texts. And then he'll say, and I think this was like almost a commentary about me one time. He said, I don't just sit at home and read the books. I go out to these places and I confirm these things to myself for myself. And I say, really, Billy? You taking your DeWalt tape measure with your suit and tie out to the pyramid and measuring that son of a bitch yourself? Or are you compiling numbers that you got from your ChatGPT that Chris Dunn went to the trouble, and Chris Dunn got it from his mathematics from another person? And are you compiling these things, making it sci-fi, and then pumping it out as some fun and fantastical thing, which, you know, he takes Sitchin as literal. And now Sitchin does bring a piece to the puzzle, but
he does.
But he created a sci-fi, and that kind of puts him in that same boat as like L. Ron Hubbard, you know, these kind of guys or whatever. But you know, you got to take pieces of the puzzle, and sometimes that takes being at home and reading and minding your own business and not getting online and saying, I go out and I measure these things for myself. And it's so easy to call that out, because you could literally tell Billy, like, what'd you use to measure the pyramid? He won't have an answer for you. He doesn't have a total stations, you know. So I don't know. They give us
the whole argument about physical proximity making you an expert. I had done a post on X about it. I said, listen, getting on an airplane and traveling to Egypt and going to look at a block does not make you an expert on that rock. It doesn't. All it does is mean you traveled, spent money, went over there and looked at a rock. Other than that, you don't know the history of the rock. You don't know how long it's been there. You don't know if it's been planted there later to cover up an entrance that goes underneath the plateau. You know absolutely nothing about that rock, other than you went there, claim to be an expert, and physical proximity will never make somebody an expert. You can gain information, you can learn stuff, but in Archaix, I have like 50 or 60 different research tenets that I promote to my community, but there's only 4 that I want to debate. There's only 4 that I've called people out on, and they're all chronological in nature, every single one.
Yeah, you're a timeline guy.
That's it. That's all I'm really interested in. Everything else is theory. Everything else is amorphous. And there's been major turnarounds in my own research where I've had to eat crow and tell my community, okay, look, we're gonna go ahead and park this avenue because it's not true. We're done. We're going to move in this direction, or hey, we're going to go ahead and add this to the Archaix concept because apparently it has value. So I've had to do that a few times. It's just, you got to do it. But when it comes to chronology, that's the only thing I'm willing to debate, and it's because I am an expert in that field, and I'm one of the very few.
Right. I want to get your charts for my wall. Do you got those on print?
No. What you need, because you have a very interesting channel and you're putting out some awesome data. You already have Big John's email.
Okay.
So tell email that you want the full Archaix charts drive, and he's going to mail you a drive, and it's got like 900 chronological charts in it, and you can use them on your channel.
Yeah, I'll check that out, man. But yeah, it's whenever they okay. So let's talk about, we were talking about the emerald tablets, right? So obviously, there is no physical emerald tablet, and these guys made these things very literal because everything has to be literal in order to tell this sci-fi story. And now, chronologically speaking, everything's open for debate. But if we look at things interdimensionally and as things within, if you look at the mythology of the emerald tablet, for example, look at how it's described. It's green, it's emerald, which green has always been the center. It's the heart chakra. It's the center of the color wheel. No matter which way you spin it, green is middle. And then you look at it. Also, it's stated that the emerald tablets are made of an indestructible material. Well, that would be something that the only thing that's indestructible is within. That is the sentience. That is what we are as a person, the awareness that we are it. If you think about the Emerald Tablets it's described as an alchemical manuscript that you can read from and gain information from as sort of like a library, like a brain of information that you can harvest information from. It seems to me you get all this literal stuff, all this sci-fi, Carson and Sitchin stuff out of the way, and look at the mythology and allegory and the way alchemy is expressed. The Emerald Tablets is within. It's your heart. It's literally not the physical heart that you can hold. It's the sentience, the awareness of your heart center as being alive and being able to think, because we think from our brains, but we also, our heart thinks, and our gut biome has a mind of its own that also thinks. It's what makes us crave sugar. Like if you get parasites in your gut, it'll make you think different ways. If you have multiple cats, which I do, you actually will have a different train of thought because it releases these parasites in your gut that make you love the cats more. And also it makes you more prone to risk, but that's a whole different thing. But our gut thinks, heart thinks, and this is how the ancient people, whenever Carl Jung went to an Aboriginal tribe, he was bewildered because he was like, so you think the sun is literally God, but I think that God is who made the sun. They're like, no, the sun's alive and it created us and we eat the sun. It is who we are. But he also noted that he said, where do you think from? And they said, from right here. He said, well, we tend to think from up here. And they say, well, that's how a child thinks. That's a naive place to think from. And Carl struggled with that for years, but that was before we had the biology to study that our heart does a lot of thinking. And if we have mind and heart coherence, where we can actually silence this for a moment and let this thinking take over, we can make that sentience come up into our conscious state of thinking and think from our heart forward. That would be, I mean, that's the Emerald Tablets right there. That's Jehudi. That's your intermediary mercurial figure between you and these mysteries. You know, it's allegory, but it's also literal at the same time. The reason it has to be allegory is because its literalness can't be expressed without scientific jargon, of which they didn't have room for back then.
You're describing for me the informed field. The informed field is basically your immortal self. The part. I mean, you're moored to an avatar, and so you're interfacing with that avatar, and there's an exchange of information. And it's just interactive field dynamics. It's this informed field that I call the spirit. This is what you're describing. It's in the Emerald Tablets would be, if you want to get esoteric, it would be the Akashic field.
Right.
And there's an interface between the informed field, which is you, and it's independent of your reality. You are truly independent of this entire experience. This is why you feel so out of place sometimes. It's why you feel like you're floating through. It's why everything it's a perceived reality, but what you're perceiving is external to you. And all this out here in the field, the overfield of the construct itself contains information. Now we're getting into P.D. Alspinski. Now we're getting into Ishak Bentov. These men we're talking about. Right. Listen, guys, information is in the field. And I tell my community that this is an absolute fact, because I know I have not memorized all the information that I possess. And I do not possess the information at all. I tell my community that, look, my informed field has assumed things to be true, and they become a part of me through the field. Not because my brain memorized these things. My brain is a hormone factory, and it is producing the necessary hormones to commiserate with what my heart, what my soul is putting out. All emotion comes from the soul, and this is coming from the heart. My brain is going to respond by releasing the hormones that are commiserate with what I'm feeling,
right,
and what I'm believing and what I'm thinking. If I believe that I have been poisoned, my brain will put out the necessary stuff to make my body feel like I've been poisoned. If I believe that I'm never going to get a cold, I'm never going to get a flu, I'm never going to do anything, because these right here, whether they have value or not, these are cell salts, and I have all kinds of cell salts for anything, and I don't even pay attention to which ones I'm taking every day. But every morning I get up and I wake up. When I wake up and I drink my coffee, when I'm right here in the studio, I will open one and I won't even look at the label to see which one it's particular to, and I'll take 3 or 4 of these cell salts, put them under my tongue, and I agree with the construct that as long as I keep taking these, I'm not going to get sick, sick. I'm not going to fall up under the weather. I'm always going to be operating at my optimum. And so far it works. And my brain produces the necessary chemicals and hormones to make my body follow through with whatever my belief is.
Yeah.
So what you're describing to me is absolutely 100% accurate. We're just using different frames of reference.
Yeah. It's the names have changed, but the story stays the same. You know, Itzhak Bentov, who I am a huge fan on. I've got 3 episodes about Itzhak Bentov alone, just his work.
Oh, do you now?
Yeah. And now that ties into Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenic field, because it's a different word, but they're talking about the same thing. And this is what's important is, like, you know, subjective. They say, you change the way you see the world starts to change. You know, it doesn't mean that objectively speaking, what you're looking at is going to be different now from subject B, from you, subject A. The world has changed now for you in particular, and not the way Jeff is seeing it over here. He's still going to see the same world until the two of you engage in such a way to feed that egregore. And then he sees it differently as well. But then even now, person D is going to continue seeing the same thing until he plays communion with parties A and B. And that's when things start to like shift on a more social level. But these, if you look at the bioluminescent field of a living being, whether it's a human or a leaf, if you cut a leaf, you can still, and if you're looking at just the bioluminescence of it, that part you cut of the leaf is gone, but the outline and the veins and the stems of where that leaf was physically are still there.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. But it's the same thing with the guy who's missing his arm. So people talk about, you know, a phantom limb syndrome. They still have pain sensation in that particular missing, where that arm is missing. It's not so weird anymore if you consider the dynamics of the plasma field, the morphogenic field, whatever Bentov, you know, called it a few different.
Yeah, it's all the same. Morphogenetic. It's the same thing as, was it Reichenbach that was publishing in the turn of the century, 125 years ago or so, about the odic field, the odic force,
right?
ODIC force. It's all the same thing,
right? And then William Reich called it orgone. You know.
Yeah, orgone energy. The other dude called it the odic force. Sheldrake is morphogenetic. I call it the highly informed field.
Right.
And it's the field attached to the actual personality inside the avatar. We are all talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah. And that amazes me for 2 reasons. It shows proof that's in the pudding, that if multiple areas of study come, because they're different words, so they're coming from different sources, are pointing at the same thing, that shows you that independently there is an objective truth happening here that multiple channels can see from different angles, making it a solid reality. But for the other reason it fascinates me is that it makes it simple. All of a sudden, people who are drowning in this field of occult, religion, science, subatomics, all of these different things are complicated, and people kind of freak out. They get option paralysis. That goes away pretty quick when we realize that it's the same thing with different names across the board. So you get to pick your favorite flavor of it, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever works to us. I mean, every culture had the same. I mean, when you reduce things to their lowest common denominators across the board in anthropology, all the belief systems. I mean, read Joseph Campbell. They're all different frames of reference, but everybody's essentially talking about the exact same things. Right. All the myths, all the traditions, the same pantheons, different names, but the different members of those pantheons all were all remembered in the same activities. They're all, Joseph Campbell goes off in anthropology and explains, man, the entire human experience. It's like one core story with fundamentals that all of a sudden was just fractured into thousands of different cultures and different time periods, but
Right.
when you reduce them all, it's the same experience.
Right.
And this is another reason why I'm a simulationist, because this fractalized knowledge that is spread throughout the human family, which is basically the same from generation to generation to generation, is more evidence that we live in a mathematical construct, and that it's us at different ingress and egress points that are seeing things from different vantage points that think everything is different.
Right.
But it's all the same. Every
Right.
bit of it's the same.
The way you termed it, informed field or hyper informed field, is actually that term does kind of paint a picture, because if you look at like Rupert Sheldrake's, his best example of the morphogenic field is the rat experiment, where if you have rats in England and rats in America, and they've never seen the maze before that they're about to go into, if the rats in America go through that maze first, they're going to have their troubles, but eventually they get their cheese. The rats in now England, Australia, they will do better than the rats in the first study, and those rats have never met. And then you have a third maze.
That's you just described non-locality.
That's what that is, right? So we're sharing a mind.
Yes.
Why?
Evidently, genetically, they're sharing a mind.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, and this is they call it emergence. They call it emergence intelligence, and then they kind of dismiss it the way they dismiss the word placebo, or DNA, or electricity. We don't know what electricity is. We don't know what placebo is, but we made a word for it, and now we just move on without understanding what it is.
I want to address that. So if it's been shown that rats are they're gonna have trouble trying to get through the maze, finally they follow their scent and they get through the maze, they get the cheese. Okay. If there are tests that show that rats going through the same maze get the cheese faster in another area of the world, then this non-locality means that on a genetic level, these rats put out signals into the field.
Right.
Nothing absorbs those signals unless there's a correlate. The correlate would be other rats.
Right.
So that means that in real time, whatever these rats do, all rats in the field learn the same thing. So this would be non-local, but it also means that in some way, these rats are broadcasting the actual genes, the chromosomes, something in rats everywhere else are receiving that information in real time. That's astonishing. It's not really astonishing because it's all a mathematical construct, but it's amazing to hear of something like that, because it shows that non-locality would also apply to genetic principles.
Dude, the rats is a perfect example of that. Ants, cicadas, all doing prime number mathematics. It's a perfect example of that. But
mothers knowing their son just got killed on a foreign battlefield.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Twins feeling each other's moods and stuff like that. Mothers. It's astounding, and we have these literal examples of them. But we can zoom in, and these scientists, for whatever reason, we're not taught these studies in school. But scientists have taken a glass of water under the precept that it retains memory. Now, I'm not talking about Emoto, where he freezes the water into different shapes. But
I've seen his stuff. I've talked about him.
That is fascinating, right? But what they did was they put DNA into the water and then introduced it to an electromagnetic field. Basically, they sparked up the water. They brought it to life, so to speak. Now, they took random amino acids. The DNA is removed, right? But it's the same water. DNA is gone. And then they shipped the water off to another lab. And they said, we are not going to tell you what we did, but we want you to put stuff in that water. So they take raw, non-contextualized amino acids and introduce them to that same water. And they give it they introduce it to an electromagnetic field. And those amino acids organized into the same DNA, not a copy of the DNA, but into the same genomic language code, DNA, as that first glass of water. That's the same water. But they took the DNA out, and the amino acids took on the form of that original DNA strand, because the water remembers. What are we made out of? You know, it goes to it. So maybe it's water that retains that etheric memory, that Akashic field, that informed field. I don't know. Maybe it's the electricity that holds it. But then again, it was a different set of electricity for that experiment. But there's something weird about water holding memory that we all have in common. And if that's the case, well, we share water with dinosaurs. We share water with everything.
Absolutely. Water is the unifying principle in almost everything in this experience. I mean, the sky, the air, all our fresh river, ponds, lakes, tanks, the ocean. I mean, what isn't connected to water in some way? So if you can find a way to charge water, if you can find a way to charge your water for any purpose before you actually drink it, yeah, it's gonna create huge effects in the avatar, and information is conveyed through water.
And that goes back to what you're saying about the vapor canopy. That would change everything, Hell
yeah, it would. It would change growth cycles, memory. Like I said, the electrical field. It's just like I said, man. We're not going to figure that great pyramid out. We're not going to figure it out because we're not living in the world that it was built in. But as soon as we're under a vapor canopy again after 2040, 2046 period, I'm going to tell you now, somebody, probably not me, is going to instantly know what that thing does.
Right. Well, it's the same thing with the Osirian temple in Egypt. That thing goes down like 5 layers, and everyone's so astonished as to how they did it, where that water comes from. But I'm like, okay, the where, what, and how, and when is really interesting, and it's a huge mystery. But man, my question is why? What did that thing do? And I don't think because it looks like, first of all, it looks like a battery, and the way the water courses through it is the same as how a battery works in your car. But that's almost too ethnocentric. That's too simple. It's too so they were powering something. I can live with that, but I don't think we are in a position today to have the context needed to know what the Osirian did, because it's right there with the pyramid in that fact, but also that's a piece of technology that we just that is living outside of our contextual experience. Well,
yeah, I agree, and I think people are going to be very surprised about in a vapor canopy environment. I can literally see when you have a mesosphere, which is miles thick, and now it's packed. So we have a mesosphere today. This is what people don't realize. I have about 9 books on vapor canopy techniques and mechanics theories going back to the 1930s. I've showed 4 of them on my channel that are just about vapor canopies. And then I have another 5 or 6 books that go into vapor canopy stuff by scientists, but the books aren't about vapor canopies. They're about fossils, and they're about life forms and all that. So I have a lot of material on the vapor canopy, and one of those books goes into detail about this isn't an ordinary situation. We may be able to fly so easily under a vapor canopy conditions. I'm not talking about humans jumping in the air and flying. I'm talking about a very simple apparatus that could even be made with plants or something like that, because we're talking about a situation where so much water mass is built up in the mesosphere that everything on the surface is very light now.
Yeah.
You follow me? Because the pool is way up here. Yeah. In the sky. And it's with an empty sky of 26, 27 layers of atmosphere, and there's almost nothing in the atmosphere. It makes everything on the surface very heavy. But once you put the weight up in the sky, because they considered it like a hammered bracelet. They considered it like a mirror, a smoking mirror. And it was this huge ocean above called the firmament. And this is when we have traditions of the Vimanas. And the Vimanas were very easy to construct, but they could go at high velocity, they could fly, and the energy intake was from the air itself. So we're talking about an electrical, humid environment where a tremendous amount of weight is suspended super high in the sky, where now, I don't know if gravity is a real thing or not, or if it's just weight and density. I don't know. But I'm not that. I'm not. I'm
Something
just
to do
not
with
there.
there's some magnetic. There's some kind of magnetic.
Exactly. But when you have that much water up there, it's also pulling. So
Right.
now you have trees and plants growing super, super high. You have creatures getting way bigger. Humans are way bigger, and it doesn't take a lot of technology to use the energy resources are available. And in these Vimanas, which a family can build one in just a few days based off just regular materials out in the forest. And these Vimanas can take you to great distances. And then we have the research of like David Hatcher Childress, and I can't claim that I this is my theory. It's actually he's the one. I don't know where he got the theory, but in his books, Lost Cities, he shows that all these thousands of Melanesian, Micronesian, Polynesian, Indonesian islands way out here connecting like long fingers from South America, Easter Island area, all the way to Indonesia, chains of islands going to the Australia, New Zealand pair. And he said, listen, it doesn't make any sense. Some of these islands aren't big enough for even the masonry that we find. But at the top of these islands are these pyramidal platforms, and they're all flat on top.
Right.
And he says these must be relay stations for people floating in dirigibles from continent to continent, and every once in a while they have to repower up. So they have all these platforms they have mapped out, and they just gently settle down for a few hours and do whatever they got to do to power back up, and they're going on to the next one. He says they serve no function from the sea. There's no reason these platforms should be on these islands. There's nothing else on the island at all.
Yeah.
You know, oftentimes the islands didn't have any stone whatsoever. So the stone had to be imported from larger islands that are hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles away. And they build these elaborate platforms, and they're just flat on top. They look like little pyramidions.
Yeah.
And David Hatcher Childress said in the ancient world, it looks like we were flying from the Americas to Asia, and it was nothing. It was just a few stops. And the only way this could have been possible is we don't think they had helicopters, so they must have been dirigibles.
Yeah. This all of a sudden the Nazca lines start to make more sense, and these plateaus start to make more sense, and these flat those flat plateaus that are loosely rumored to have been ancient trees start to make a lot more sense. And also, and not to get too wild here, but flightless birds. Why would nature, and science doesn't have an answer for this, why would nature create a bird that can't fly? I don't think it would. And it makes more sense that this creature was developed or created or evolved, whatever you want, in an environment that it was easier to take flight. And
absolutely. Why would you put wings on a creature if they can't be used?
Doesn't make
any
any
sense. And we're talking about the moas, the emus, we're talking ostriches. We're talking about these birds are large and they're very dinosauric.
Right.
Yeah. And they're also violent as hell.
Right.
They also have the exact same prints as what we're being told are dinosaur prints.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
That's interesting. Which is, and also, why would nature put two little bitty fingers as arms on a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is the most dangerous apex predator? Now, so what? Like he's got it decked out. He's a machine for killing, but nature gave him these little nubs. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. He can't even bite whatever he's holding with those little hands.
Right. So nature doesn't make things for no reason. There's never been a case of that except for these anomalies that we can't explain. And frankly, if you take a T-Rex's arms and rotate them about 45 degrees backwards, counterclockwise, you got a chicken. You've got a chicken skeleton. And then we look at all of the, which you brought up yesterday, ancient people drew dinosaurs with feathers. And well, we don't have a choice at this point but to say that wasn't imagination. They drew what they saw. And
listen, Joey, the biggest takeaway from my video yesterday is right now you have 14 to 15 more years to enjoy your chicken, because after that point they're going to be chasing us down.
Dude, Yeah, and that's
Enjoy your
reality
chicken.
changes so quick.
I love chicken, but I'm telling you now, man, we have been sold some bullshit. And I don't even know at this point if uniformitarians actually know the true history of the world and that we're actually figuring it out. And they're just so brainwashed in their compartmentalized education that they're just never going to figure it out because everything to them is millions of years ago, and that dinosaurs, you know, have been gone since that time. And they're just not going to entertain any of these proofs and evidences that we just coexisted with dinosaurs very recently, up to the 1800s.
Yeah.
Do you know about do you know about the guy who wrote Haunted Planet, John Keel? Do you know that John Keel showed a lot of people? This is before the AI, before the internet. We're talking about in the 1960s. John Keel was given a photograph that was old and decayed from the 1880s, and six dudes in the 1880s with their rifles were all lined up, and it was a 40-foot wingspan on a pterodactyl. It was a 40-foot wingspan on a pterodactyl. It's the same one the Navajo described, the same one many Native Americans described. The pterodons and pterodactyls were all over the American Midwest until the early 1800s. Well, one in 1880s, they hunted it down and shot it down. It would literally swoop down and take farmers' goats, just take their goats. So they shot this thing down, took a picture of it, and he had it and showed it to a lot of people. He was going to put it in one of his books. John Keel's got some amazing books. Haunted Planet. Everybody needs to read Haunted Planet. It'll show you our world is not what you think. But man, Our Haunted Planet by John Keel, he was going to put it in the book, and he got some visitors, and they wanted to see that photograph.
Yeah.
But it was all set up because the photograph had already been stolen from him.
Right.
He was looking for the photo to show it to him, and that's when he realized he'd been had. And he never got to put it in a book, but he had verified, and other people verified the photograph was real. Many people had seen it, but it's just like this Men in Black scenario. Every time important shit gets found, that shit gets government agents show up and just shut them down. Like, it was recent, like 2014, 2015 in New Mexico or Arizona. I was just reading about this in a book called Giants of Ancient America. I have that in my library. In Giants of Ancient America, or Giants of America, in that book, it talks about how the FBI and the Smithsonian agents, what are Smithsonian agents doing with pistols? Why do they have firearms?
Yeah.
The Smithsonian and FBI converged on an archaeological site, and in the field, these scientists had to strip butt naked. Right there, giving their clothes back. Nobody could get artifacts out. They found a whole community of red-headed humans with textiles and thread counts that only machines can do. They found them with elaborate, beautiful pottery, but the reason why the government got involved, every human had 6 toes and 6 fingers.
Right.
But other than that, they were perfectly human.
Right.
This is really crazy. I think this is vapor canopy. These people were born these are the ones that were born in the vapor canopy period. And the reason I say this is because it has always been mysterious where in the hell the Sumerians got the sexagesimal system. Why would you create a 6-digit system? Why would you even create arithmetic and not use the 5 as a base denominator, which perfectly bleeds into the decimal system, which is based off tens and decans. Why would you complicate everything with a 6-digit system?
Yeah.
But it's not complicated if you have 6 digits.
You count on your hand first.
Everything. So the whole Sumerian sexagesimal system has never made sense why they did that. It's not commensurate with anything, but the decimal system is. It's based off 5 fingers.
Yeah.
It's based off tens. So just really interesting how they came in and swooped in there and made everybody sign NDAs. And of course, the people that told the story, they're violating the NDA. But yeah, man, we have all kinds. 6-finger giants are in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, man. So I'm thinking that 6 fingers is a product of the vapor canopy.
Yeah. Well, you know what would be impossible would be reports, records, photographs, and findings from all over the world depicting giants with 6 fingers and 2 rows of teeth and six toes, all who haven't made contact with each other, mythologies from all over the world, biblical literature.
There's a lot of material out there about hyperdontia. Hyperdontia is double molars on
Right.
tops and bottoms.
Yeah.
There's a lot of material. There's a lot of giant skeletons have been found.
Yeah. And Cahokia. I'm in St. Louis. I live in St. Louis, and I'm 45 minutes from the Cahokia Mounds, where they found giant skeletons with 6 fingers, right? And so we're told that that never happened. Well, why were they also found in the Grand Canyon? And why were they also found? I mean, you name it, right? These things were found all over the Americas, not just overseas. And these cultures come together who have never met and say, oh, we've got those too. Kind of like there's a word for Bigfoot and there's a word for Sasquatch by 2 different people who have never met. They met each other one day. This is in the 1400s. Like, oh, yeah, we have a word for that too. What? And then we dig into the fossil record. We find that there was a Gigantopithecus. Like that was a real creature. How weird would it be if none of that was so and they happened to have existed? It doesn't make any sense. The official story crumbles under Occam's razor the moment you look at, I mean, any one part of it, it crumbles. But then you combine everything together and it's completely unavoidable.
So this, I agree. And with Bigfoot, you know, that's just an American version. You know, we have with Bigfoot, we have the abominable snowman,
right?
The Yeti. In Australia, he's a Yowie.
Right.
So it's there's so many different ones, but
and that's the point. How can you have so many names for that thing unless there was a thing? You know,
I agree with you. So how about this? You know, you've heard of Project Looking Glass.
Yeah.
So
a little bit.
We're in the period right now that the Project Looking Glass foresaw. They literally foresaw over a decade ago that this period was going to happen when almost every secret's going to be exposed. Every crime is going to be exposed. They're not going to be able to stop the human family from absolutely waking up. Whoever funded Project Looking Glass and whatever technology they used, if it was date sequence predictive analytics or whatever, if it was a whole combination of different event prediction systems, I don't know. But whatever they saw what they evidently saw this period. This is what was published about it. That they saw a period of time where we were going to learn the truth about everything so exponentially fast. Right. There was no way the controllers could cap it.
Yeah.
There was no way they could cap it. So
they're trying to adjust to that now.
At this point, I think all they can do is what they're doing. One is damage control through limited. It's called damage control through limited disclosure. And one way to do this is through a bunch of misdirection. The Epstein files, releasing the Epstein files is genius because it allows our controllers to sacrifice a lot of major players who have furthered their cause. You understand? Okay. But they know too much. So let's go ahead and get them on the Epstein list. It also allows them to do away with problematic individuals by falsifying Epstein file records and releasing them to the public to make it look like some people went to Epstein or were in communication with Epstein who never were. But these are people that are undesirables to the controllers. They need to get rid of them. Others are truly guilty, but they no longer have utilitarian value because social media is a court. And the court of public opinion the door is already shut on a bunch of these Hollywood execs, on these Hollywood producers. The door is already shut on a bunch of politicians. The communities have already shown the controllers in posts on social media. Everything is analyzed. Everything is run through servers. They're processing all this information, and they already know that the public is fed up with all these people right here. So let's make sure we give the public what they want.
Right.
Heads will roll. Here's everybody right here. Here's the added ones that we put in the falsified because they're just causing us problems.
Right.
And we need to add them. They can muddle the waters. They can take care of undesirables. They can actually, this is what a reptile does. It slows off the skin that's no longer providing value, and it becomes a new beast. So this is what's happening. The hydra of many heads is cutting off the heads that the public knows about. So the new heads that grow in its place are the ones the public will come to trust.
Yeah. It's like it's all on purpose to some kind of playbook, and the timing kind of shows it like that. It's almost heartbreaking to think about that. Real quick, just letting you know, I'm at 7% battery, and I don't know why it died so quick.
Oh, that's okay. We're about done.
We must be cooking.
2 hours.
But
it's been over 2 hours.
That's a really interesting way to look at the Epstein files, because, and as above, so below, that, you know, shedding the skin, that's what the reptile is going to do. That's the egregore that is the reptile, is going to give the people something to feed on in order to continue on. But I really wish we could be smart about this, because there's two ways to react to that information. We can react with fear and disgust, or we can react with certitude and unity. And I don't know which way that's going to go yet, but I've already personally heard several people say, oh man, that's just the way it is now. And I'm like, bro, we're paying for that. We're paying for them to steal our children, ours, not in a third world country, you know, the name we can't pronounce. It's happening like right here. And it's interesting when you see like Bill Gates or whatever. I guess that would be what they didn't censor his name. They censored a lot of names. They didn't censor his.
The public already doesn't trust him. It's time for him to go. He serves the beast better by sacrifice than continuing in a position that just exposes the beast's hand.
That's because, yeah, they look at the social media and they measure it.
Hell yeah, they do. They look at your channel. They look at my channel. They look at every single comment in here. They've got AI servers that are processing this information far faster than we could ever do.
It says that in the files too. Epstein wanted to know. There's one of the files says, hey, if you remove the bots, who's more popular, Trump or Clinton? This was something that was on his mind, of course. Yeah. And the email sent back was not a metaphor. It wasn't a story. It wasn't an allegory. It wasn't an estimation. They sent percentages back, and it said, with bots removed, Trump is this, blah, 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 blah. Here's the percentages. It's like the entire social media platform, which feels like an outlet of freedom, which does serve for that regard, but they have it all condensed into a box that exports a number that they can measure and weigh and use to play out their next move or whatever it's going to be. And it's heartbreaking to think about, because that's the very medium at which we're able to get this information out in the first place. It's almost a tragic irony.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Listen, I'm never going to stress about it, because, you know, you're here to build your world, which includes everything that you love, everybody you come into contact. Your community is a part of your world. The communities of others are part of your world, but there is no responsibility for you to change the world. It's just that's my takeaway.
Yeah.
And this is because if you were bogged down, do you understand the psychological effect it would have on you to actually believe that the changing of the world is somehow on your shoulders?
Right. Yeah, that's massive. All we can do is look within, which is that's been the core teaching of the esoteric all along. You know, when Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within, and to enter the closet and shut the door and let thy eye be single. He wasn't telling people to walk down the aisle of a church or chant a hymn or sing a song of worship or go to a clergyman and he was flipping tables at, you know, whenever they saw them collecting money to build a temple. He's like, what are you doing? Don't build a temple in my name. The temple is within. He's like, why do you call me Lord, but not do the things that I have said? You know, it's like he was a broken record at a certain point, speaking in both literal sense and an allegory, trying to get people to understand that all they can change is what's going on in here. That it has a ripple effect. It's got a wake that, but you can't change what's on the outside, because you're just throwing darts at an empty field unless you've changed what's going on within and you let that alchemize outwardly. You were not doing nothing. All at that point, all we're doing is surviving. We're still in that survival mode, you know.
Absolutely. Well, look, do me a favor, man, and the Big John email that you've been communicating through. Yeah, man. Yeah, tell him to send that charts drive. You're gonna
hit him up, dude.
You're gonna want that, man.
This timing is perfect. I'm at 5% right now.
Yeah, you're about to go.
Yeah, we can cut it off without actually being interrupted, which I was ready to go on until it actually cuts us off, and then people in the chat will be like, "Damn, they shut him down."
Yeah, they would too. They would say that too. All right, man. So your links are in the description box, and several of your links have been posted throughout the course of this video. So my chats stay on. So when people watch it, you know, weeks, months, years in the future, all your links are in the description box and in the live chat.
Wonderful, man. I appreciate your time, and thank you for having me on the show, Jason.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. We'll do it again sometime.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon, bro. See ya.
Yeah, man. Y'all check out his channel. He's got some pretty good guests, but the topics, the things that he just freestyles about and goes off about, it's amazing. He almost convinced me that, you know, I might be part mystic. I don't know. But maybe a chrono mystic. But yeah, it's he's got good energy, and you go check out his channel. And I'll probably just go ahead and talk to Big John today and tell him to send that to him, because the charts aren't really easy to see online. Not on the videos, at least. Oh, I got something to show you guys right now, real quick. Share my screen. Yeah, isn't that a mind F? Nibiru, Planet of the Crossing. All along, our education had us processing that information different than the Sumerians conveyed it. Isn't that interesting? That's the poison of uniformitarianism. But our education and how we see the world had us processing the information differently. But they told us, when Nibiru is here, it's for 60 years at a time. While it's here, it is the planet of the crossing. But that's what Zechariah Sitchin called it, the planet of the crossing. That's not in the Sumerian. In the Sumerian, it was the fairy. When the 60 years is here, it acts as a fairy. What does a fairy do? It takes you over the waters. What do all these reset traditions have? Fleets of ships arriving after a cataclysm. Are there fleets of ships leaving our world going to populate the Nemesis plane, which is a duplicate of our world? Because we're receiving fleets of ships from that plane straight into our world that act as benefactors, and they're building our world. Every cataclysm comes with a ready-made fleets of ships populated with people ready to start a new world. What in the F is going on? So crazy. Let me show you this real quick. Got a whole bunch of responses from this because I keep wearing it. About once a year, I'll wear it in a video. So if you guys want it that bad, we provided them in the Shopify store. The link is in the description box. If you want to wear your inky shirt, just do it. They are now available. This is just one color. We've got many different colors. This is the front of the new inky shirts in the store. Big John and Cheryl just made them. They're available now. You know, we make our own shirts. We do all that stuff in-house now. That's the front. Here's the back. That's the front, and here's the back, but they're all different colors. You choose what colors you want. Real simple. If you want to represent Archaix, inky. A lot of people are going to think it says Nike, but you're going to get some people looking at it, inky. What the hell? What is that? Conversation piece. Lock them into Archaix right then and there. Oh, you don't know anything about inky? Yeah, man. You behind. You need to listen to this channel here, because as soon as you do, you're going to want your inky shirt too. That's crazy. Yeah, man. All right. Fine. So we did talk about this individual for a little while. Wasn't my intention. I wasn't the one that brought him up. So we're going to sign out with a song in honor of Billy Carson, because he's the man. He is the man. And I will post the live tonight, but Monday we have Astrologer Joe coming right back on Archaix. It's been a while since we talked to him. We're going to be talking about current events and what's going on in the field. Yeah, man. Let's see here. Go in here. Yeah, man. Anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you later.
Billy Carson, hiding behind the emerald lights, forbidden knowledge, but that truth's collides. Archaix napalm, burning through the night. Spin your tales of Anunnaki gods, aliens from the Biru mining gold in the sod. Sitchin's old fictions you repackage and sell. Emerald tablets hoax ringing that grifter bell. Claim degrees you don't have, fake credentials on show. William Tyrone Carson, everybody knows. Pioneer game scams, decalcify your mind. Paywalls and costs, leaving truth behind. Freedomites from Mars, 65,000 years ago. But the tablets say different, stealing the show. You dodge every debate, run from the real fight. Professor Dave called you out, vanished into the night. West Huff wrecked your Bible claims, sued to hide the shame. But Archaix is coming, torching your game. Billy forbidden, all you crashing down. Grifter king of pseudoscience town, selling ancient aliens, fake history shit. But the napalm truth from Archaix has run, Billy, run from the facts you fear. Your empire's crumbling and is near. Forbidden spaghetti, tangled in deceit. The world's waking up, feel the heat. Joe Rogan's couch, you sat and spun your yarn. Terrence Howard vibes, but you're sounding the alarm. Overpriced Egypt tours, non-refundable pain. Florida DA called you out. Predatory game. Handbags and star maps, misreading the seals. VA 243 nonsense, no solar system reveals. Manifest destiny journals, quantum mind so fake. With Howard on stage, what a mistake. Sumerian kings live forever, you say with a grin. But Archaix data proves you can't win. You get so forbidden when the scholars unwind. losing your matrix, leaving facts behind. Call out the frauds from stitching to you. Archaix is rising, exposing the crew. Billy forbidden, oh, you're crashing down. Chris the king of pseudo-science town, selling ancient aliens, fake history shit. But the napalm truth from Archaix heads. Run, Billy, run from the facts you fear. You're here, your empire's crumbling and is near. Forbidden spaghetti, tangled in deceit. The world's waking up. Feel the heat. Oh, Billy, why'd you fake it all so low? Stealing names and stories, putting on a show. From the pyramids' depths to Antarctic lies, your hidden chamber's empty, no surprise. Archaix roars with chronologic fire, burning your bridges, taking it higher. No more hiding in your forbidden veil. The simulation's breaking, your tales Billy forbidden, yeah, you're crashing down. Oh, Billy, grip the king, losing your crown, selling forbidden dreams. But the truth is clear. Archaix napalm, year after year. Run, Billy, run, but you can't outpace. The data's dropping, sealing your disgrace. Forbidden spaghetti, forever confined in the Archaix blaze. You're left behind.